So tonight we are continuing the analysis and the beaming of the searchlight pretty much on the actions as well as the inactions of these Nigeria politicians. I call them criminals for the starter. So you know about the ongoing coalition days and those behind that, and what they said was why, as well as the Tinubu's camp, who are doing everything as well to make sure that it keeps power beyond 2027. Now today, El-Rufai, Kaduna Littlefinger, heard a very concerning post on his X. And if anyone is really familiar with El-Rufai's antics, his president, then you should know that he doesn't actually share things without an intention, you know. And he sort of like leaves people to debate whatever that means to every camp, his positions on things. So El-Rufai has helped amplify a post on social media on X, where he has now predicted the beginning of a doomsday for Nigeria from September 2026. He is not the author of this said article, but like I said, if you know the antecedents of El-Rufai from the days when they were in the trenches threatening Igbe, right? And that was when they were like approaching Paso. His digital footprint, right? Everything he left behind back then before he gained power or became governor, almost everything played out. You know, quotes like, anyone who kills a Fulani owes a debt. Even if it takes 100 years, the debt will be repaid. And we all know what happened in Kaduna around that time. Now, is doomsday predictions. To start with, El-Rufai hinted, not again, like I said, is not really the author. There's somebody called Fake or something that is the real author. And the link to the said prediction is also in this broadcast. If you check out the description as well, okay, it is in. You can click open and read. But from El-Rufai's postulations, number one, he said from September 2026. Listen up. From September, sorry, one sec. Let me leave the chart on the screen. Yeah. 1 second. Now, brilliant. So, according to El-Rufai and the author of this, content, he said from September 2026, 75%, and this is like a doomsday prediction, so to say, okay? But pay attention. And according to them, this is not just a kind of like a projection or postulation or anything. You know, they came to this conclusion after lengthy, long time researches into all the actions and the inactions of Tinubu, even though they are feeding you with a lot of lies. So they believe that they can't hide the lies for too long, right? So they said by September 2026, there is a staggering, there's 75% probability that Nigeria will face a devastating financial collapse, succumbing to a debt death spiral given. Let's take that again. Every of them will probably take your breath to be like, oh, is this coming from the position of what? But let me finish. By September 2026, there is a staggering 75% probability that Nigeria will face a devastating financial collapse, succumbing to a debt death spiral driven by soaring interest payments on foreign debts. That is contrary to the lies that Tinubu is telling everybody that he has reduced the debt servicing, which is a lie on his own. The second one, Nigeria's sovereign credit, that is Nigeria's sovereign credit rating, will be downgraded to junk status, prompting private creditors to demand immediate repayment, cutting off essential funding, and driving the nation into economic paralysis. Multilateral lenders like the World Bank and IMF, along with bilateral creditors, respond too slowly to offer a lifeline, failing to halt the death spiral. 4. Without new loans and debt relief, the government defaults on external debt, causing the naira to crash, inflation to spiral out of control, and the banking sector to collapse, leaving millions unable to access their funds. 5. As creditors seize Nigeria's oil tankers, the government's last remaining revenue source is cut off, plunging the nation into an unprecedented financial crisis. 6. With dwindling funds, the government is unable to pay salaries, pensions, or provide remittances to states, bringing public services to a grinding halt. All states, except Lagos and FCT, become broke and insolvent, struggling to meet even the most basic obligations. 7. In a desperate attempt to stay afloat, the Central Bank of Nigeria resorts to reckless money printing, triggering runaway hyperinflation that erodes savings, skyrockets the cost of living, and deepens the economic recession. 8. Chaos ensues. Food, medicine, and fuel shortages will become widespread. Law enforcement will crumble and mass looting erupts. 9. Essential services, hospitals, schools, airports, trains, road, transportation, and power grids will collapse while the stock market crashes. I believe some of you are probably shouting, in Jesus' name, we reject it in Jesus' name. I kind of have to follow you, reject it too, but shall listen. In all this, President Tinubu and the National Assembly are alarmingly paralyzed, failing to take decisive action while the nation teeters on the brink of collapse. In this power vacuum, religious extremists, separatists, and foreign actors exploit the turmoil, pushing Nigeria to the brink of anarchy. Nigeria descends into a brutal fight for survival, where you kill or be killed. 12. This is not speculation or alarmism. It is a clear present danger based on rigorous analysis and robust scenarios, simulations. We can't pray our way out of this man-made catastrophe or shift blame. Only decisive action and responsible leadership can avert the looming collapse if we act swiftly and decisively. So that's number 13. Now I'm going to go on to the main article itself, where it's really kind of like listed. I'll take a look at the way they put it out. That was El-Rufai highlighting it on X. So they said the model delivers, so they have this research they said they did on Nigeria, because it is believed that Tinubu and his gang, they are actually hiding a lot from the people. They are doctoring the book. They are praising themselves. But whatever they are hiding, it may not remain hidden for long. If, according to this, their research, a decisive action is not taken. What is that decisive action? Well, we'll see. So they said Nigeria's credit rating will be downgraded. Global lenders will cut ties. I told you about that one. So the way that it was kind of explained is this, right? It said, all hell breaks loose as credit rating agencies downgrade Nigeria's sovereign credit rating to junk status, triggering a wave of panic. International private creditors issue immediate debt call notices, cutting Nigeria off from critical funding. Multilateral lenders such as the World Bank and IMF, along with bilateral creditors, respond too slowly to provide a lifeline, leaving the government stranded without viable options. With no new loans, no debt relief, and foreign reserve depleted, the economy plunges into a devastating freefall, leaving the nation teetering on the edge of collapse. Nigeria will default on its, on its external debt obligation eventually, as this Tinubu and his gang continue to be spendthrift, what they call them. So banking sector collapses, nationwide bank runs begin. Investors' confidence evaporates overnight, triggering a catastrophic meltdown in the banking sector. Banks across the country face mass withdrawals as desperate citizens scramble to salvage their dwindling savings, only to find their account frozen, their futures uncertain. Right? Government payroll collapses, triggering hyperinflation. So government covers dry up. Salaries and pension payment grinds to a halt. In a desperate attempt to stay afloat, the government will print massive amount of naira, fueling hyperinflation and causing the currency to collapse. Basic necessities become unaffordable, pushing millions into extreme poverty. I told you it's a doomsday prediction starting from September next year. So this one is not like end of the world kind of prediction, no, right? If Tinubu and his gang continue to in this their Tinubunomic trajectory and propaganda-laced, statistics, right? Well, if you are not already where they are predicting, then they are still masking it, according to this their research. So federal remittances to states cease, weaker states face collapse. Maybe they are planning to create more states now, Abby. Well, there is something to be more worried about, right? So the federal government stops sending allocations to the states. February 2024, the Supreme Court of Nigeria ruled after the Attorney General of Nigeria, Tinubu's Attorney General. So Tinubu's Attorney General of Nigeria, Fagbewon, sued the state governors because Tinubu said he wanted to do local government autonomy. So the Supreme Court then ruled that the local government allocations should be paid directly to them. And Tinubu and his gang started congratulating themselves, like the Port Harcourt refinery. It's been over, where are we now? Okay, it's almost like 20 months ago. Yeah, the local government autonomy remains just on paper, but they've already listed it as part of Tinubu's achievements. So the local governments were supposed to be collecting their own money, right? So they're already pushing an agenda that, Tinubu is coming up with one brilliant idea now that everybody from every local government area will benefit. So they are going to give money, local government autonomy money. They're going to share the money for some certain youth in every local government area across Nigeria to train them. So this will accelerate wealth growth and wealth sharing or something like that. It is a propaganda, but we'll come back to that. So the deal is about to dry up and the lie is about to be blown. If what these guys said, their research said to them, there are pointers anyway, right? But a lot of you probably believe that it will never get to that stage. Nah, it can't be that bad. No. Anyway, the federal government stopped sending allocation to the states, bringing states government to their knees. Without these funds, essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure projects collapse. State governors and local governments, devoid of alternatives, declare financial emergencies, leading to widespread insolvencies. Then you get to the nationwide reactions. So food, medicine, fuel shortages deepens. Looting and widespread social unrest erupt. You see that desperate Nigerians take to the street in search of food, fuel, and basic necessities. Supermarkets, warehouses, and government food storage facilities are looted, with mobs stripping them bare within hours. Armed gangs and vigilantes fill the power vacuum, turning once thriving cities into chaotic battlegrounds. Law and order breaks down. So step by step, chaos erupts in the streets as law enforcement agencies abandon their posts, unable or unwilling to contain the widespread violence. Police stations are deserted and officers disappear from the streets, leaving communities to fend for themselves. Everyone is in survival mode, kill or be killed. So nationwide power supply fails, public health system collapses, educational system shuts down, essential services collapse completely. So critical services collapse under the weight of the crisis. Airport grinds to a halt, with flights suspended and terminals deserted as fuel shortages and operational failures cripple the aviation sector. Communication networks falter, cutting millions off from vital information and emergency services. Transportation networks break down, leaving roads littered with abandoned vehicles and public transit system paralyzed. Local markets, once bustling with activity, descend into chaos as food and essential supplies vanishes. Prices soar beyond reach and desperate citizens scramble for survival amidst widespread scarcity and looting. Economic activities grinds to a halt and markets crash. Diplomatic isolation grows, mass migration and refugee crisis begins. With the collapse of infrastructure and services, a mass exodus of Nigerians begins. Thousands flee the country in search of safety and stability, leading to an international refugee crisis that strains neighboring countries. Political stability crumbles and military takeover looms. Secessionist movement gain momentum and civil conflict erupts. Amid the chaos, religious extremists and separatist groups capitalize on the breakdown of governance to push for independence. Calls for secession grow louder, with armed clashes erupting in different parts of the country, threatening our fragile unity. Humanitarian crisis escalates beyond control, with millions displaced, infrastructure failing, and government support non-existent. Our nation faces a full-scale humanitarian disaster. International aid organizations struggle to provide relief, but looting, corruption, and insecurity hinder their efforts. 20. Finally, foreign exploitation and intervention intensify. As the country crisis deepens, foreign power exploit the situation for their interests. Resources such as oil, minerals, and land becomes vulnerable to external control, turning Nigeria into a pawn on the global stage. So where is the President Tinubu and National Assembly? Well, President Tinubu and the National Assembly can either dismiss this urgent warning as mere alarmism, just as they have always done, or finally recognize it as a wake-up call to take decisive action before it's too late. Instead of implementing strategic, data-driven policies to avert disaster, the government remains trapped in a cycle of reactive measures, short-term fixes, and empty rhetoric, leaving the country on a dangerous trajectory towards financial and social ruin. I'll drink tea. Right there, and then a lot of you are just like, no, you can't get to that. Go and read about Venezuela. Let them keep popping up the fake statistics to tell you that it's only you that is not feeling the changes. That the changes is everywhere. Everybody is feeling the economy is taking a turn and all those other nonsense that they are telling you. So sit down there and tell yourself, you know, if economy collapses, you won't have elections now. Can this looming catastrophe be prevented? Well, the tragic truth is that this collapse is preventable. The warning signs are clear: widespread corruption, irresponsible spending, mounting debt, and failed leadership. Yet, rather than taking decisive action, those in power prioritize short-term gains at the expense of long-term stability. Despite the bleak outlook, Nigeria's collapse is not inevitable. The only way to avert disaster is through decisive and immediate action. President Tinubu must break free from the debt spiral, where the government is compelled to borrow increasingly larger sums just to cover soaring interest payments. Further, the government must abandon its reckless spending habit and prioritize fiscal discipline. Subsidies that primarily benefit the elite must be eliminated, and resources must be redirected to critical sectors like education, agriculture, healthcare, and economic infrastructure. Politically motivated black hole projects, such as the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, should be suspended or cancelled. Debt restructuring is essential to prevent creditors from seizing national assets and to create fiscal breathing room. Maybe today that they seize Nigerian property. Remember recently, okay. Diversifying the economy is no longer an aspiration but an urgent necessity. Agriculture, manufacturing and technology must be developed to reduce dependency on oil